Hello, everybody. I am so excited to be here for episode 3 of the Eternal Possibility Hour, where I am interviewing ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things. And I am so excited to have my friend Leah here. And she is in San Francisco and founded the San Francisco Center for Self-Compassion and has a really interesting life story. And I'm so excited to bring her on today. And so let's get started and chat with Leah. Hi, Leah.
Hello. Hi, Esther.
How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
inviting me.
Oh, you are so welcome. I'm so excited. Self-compassion is it's kind of a tricky thing, I think, for a lot of people. And you
Yes.
really walk this beautiful road of finding your way, of becoming centered and grounded in who you are and sharing your gifts in the world and really asking the tough questions and finding some answers for yourself. So I would love to hear a little bit about your background.
Sure. And I would say too, sometimes it's not the answers, it's sitting with the open questions too. Like it's a both and. So that's definitely I wouldn't want to say I've like figured it out, you know. I think for sure self-compassion to me is the most important thing. It's what I put my energy toward professionally and what I work with a lot behind the scenes personally as well. So, but so much of the way I think about it is our relationship with uncertainty, and that being just really key and really hard. It's one of the hardest things for us humans to make friends with, and yet it's also at the heart of being human. So I think it's one of those things that's so important to focus on. So um, let's see my path. Let's see if we want to just talk about the work side of things, you think,
Well,
or
well, right now you're okay. So you were a writer and editor in a corporate place for a long time, and then really came to a sense of not knowing what was next for you and not being happy and going on a journey of searching. And you ended up now as a marriage and family therapist and a real student of life and a student of self-compassion practice
yes.
and Zen practice. And so, how do you get from the corporate world and being really unhappy with your life to where you are now? And really through that process of embracing the unknown and not knowing exactly what your path is or how to get from point A to point B.
Yes. I mean, I think for me, there was a kind of what I would say like a triggering event or a catalyzing event, which was a major loss in my life. And I think sometimes when we have those experiences, it really it shakes our foundation, but it can also shake our sense of like, okay, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. So I don't want to keep doing something that makes me miserable. There's a kind of motivation that I think can really kick in. Different things happen when people grieve, but for me, that was one of the things that happened was um, I don't want to die with any regrets.
Mm.
And if I keep doing this, I, I will, for sure. So I think there was just something that had been there. The trouble was, I'm very good at seeing patterns, and as an editor, that's really helpful. You can see when things dramatically don't fit the pattern, when things just don't make sense. And I was really good at it, not to be braggy, but I just am because of this way I can recognize patterns. So you get rewarded for things that you don't necessarily enjoy. And I think a lot of people are in that predicament where maybe they've been in a career for some period of time and they've learned skills, or the career draws on certain skills, and then they're getting rewarded, and the longer you stay the more you get rewarded, and the golden handcuffs really come on. So I think it can be really hard. And I'll say, if you struggle with self-criticism, attention to detail is one of the things that you tend to be really good at, because the inner critic, like that's one of its, like, man, it's got that down. So I struggled very much with an inner critic, but it also helped me be a really effective editor and really efficient and all that. So it was hard, but I also knew it wasn't working. But like you said, I didn't know what would work. So it was that loss that catalyzed it. And I just said, okay, I don't want to die with regrets. I want to figure out, I know what to say no to. I don't know what to say yes to. And I think a lot of people are also in that predicament of like, I know what I don't want. I don't know what I do want. So I just started paying attention in my everyday life to like, what are the things, even if they're small things, that I can say yes to. And it was like a little breadcrumb trail for me, I think, of very like, do I want to have tea, like English breakfast tea, or some other kind of tea? Like, which one can I say yes to? Like, literally very, very mundane things. Um, and then I just kept doing that. And I had friends who were going to be going on this trip to France. And I was like, well, I want to go do that with them. So I just decided to go do that with them. And then while I was there, I was reminded that I could speak French, actually, because I studied it in school and I lived with a family when I was a teenager. And I was like, huh, I'd like to go live there. How could I do that? So I learned about a program, or I could, like, through the French government, teach English and get a stipend and live there and everything. And I was like, okay. I applied. It was a long process. I got approved, quit my job, sold or gave away my stuff, gave up my apartment here in San Francisco, and went over there. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I just knew that's something I want to do, and I can. You know, I don't have any other obligations, so I'm going to see what happens. And I did, and I think it was a really amazing experience. And it also taught me that I didn't want to do that. Like that wasn't something I wanted to continue doing. So then I had another choice of like, okay, what next? And there were two things. Like, I want to apply to this MFA writing program where if you get in, it's like a full scholarship and everything. I was very like concerned about the financial piece of it. It's like, okay, this needs to be sustainable if I'm not going to be working this job that I'm used to working. And then the other one was, okay, I've been practicing Zen for, at that point, gosh, I don't know, 5, 10 years, something like that. And I want to go and practice residentially. I've never done that. So I'm going to apply to these two possible programs, you know. Didn't get into the MFA program, got accepted to practice residentially at Zen Center. So did that.
And what does that look
Again,
like? Leah,
to
what does that look
practice
like for people who might
residentially.
not know what Zen practice is and what a residential placement
Yeah.
would be? What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, in this case, there's a schedule. That's one of the kind of fundamental things. It's like, when in doubt, follow the schedule. So when you're practicing, there's a wake up bell, there's morning meditation, then there's the time when I was there, then there would be temple cleaning, then there would be breakfast, then there would be a work circle, then there would be work, then there's lunch, then there's a little break after lunch, then another work circle, then there's afternoon work, then there's another break, dinner, and then meditation again. But that's, so it's very structured.
Right. But the whole point is the meditation piece.
Not exactly. I think with Zen, especially, work practice is also practice. So it's not just meditation. It's how you show up for whatever you're doing and making whatever you're doing your practice. So at the time that I was there, it was the summertime, which is when they have guests come and visit. So it wasn't the same kind of schedule as when it's a practice period. So practice period, there's still work, but there's a lot more meditation. So it's different that way, but very structured. And was there for 6 months and only left once. So it was a very kind of intensive, contained time for me, where a lot of things came to the surface that needed to come to the surface. And I got some clarity, but I didn't get any answers, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't know what was going to come next exactly, but I had to do the next thing, which was couldn't stay there for a practice period because that's sort of the intensive place that they only want people to stay there for a practice period if you have experience of a less intense practice period, put it that way. So I went back to San Francisco where there's a Zen center where you can also live, and did a practice period there. And during that time, was really struggling because I didn't know what I was doing with my life. And I was not happy about that. And I had lots of open questions and not a lot of answers. But I think because, and you know, I've talked about this before, but that time, those 6 months really cleared away a lot of cobwebs, just a lot of fog, I think, that had been obscuring my ability to see what was next. And I learned about a graduate program in counseling psychology during that time, back at San Francisco Zen Center. And there was something very clear. It was like, oh, that's what I want to do. That is it. And I just knew that it was. And so I think I found out about the program maybe in October. I applied and I started in January. So it was just like boom, boom, boom. Very, very quick transition, but I knew and I was ready. And yeah, it was just it was just continuing to do the next thing. But I think always recognizing you're not going to get like the answer where you never have questions again, and like you never feel that uncomfortable feeling of uncertainty. It's like that's life. That's, I think, the center of being human is that uncertainty.
So it sounds like your journey started with one being really unhappy and having an awareness of not wanting to choose that unhappiness anymore for yourself and not knowing what
Yeah.
was happening, but saying, all right, let's just on a daily basis say, what do I like? And then those breadcrumbs came in, and it sounds like those breadcrumbs just continued to slowly enter your life at the perfect time for you to
Yeah.
make those decisions in this like
Yeah.
beautiful unfolding. I'm sure it maybe didn't feel like a beautiful unfolding for you at the time.
Yeah.
Decisions are
Exactly.
tough,
Yeah.
and what am I going to do, and finances and everything else. But it sounds
Yeah.
like when you look back on it, that you were really being led from piece to piece to piece in a really
Yes.
lovely way. And so
Yes.
how does you do a lot of work on your website, and I'm going to link to this. You have a beautiful book about how to love yourself. And I'm wondering how you came to really work with people around self-compassion and how people get there.
How they get to the like to how they get to me, or how they get
Oh,
to
no,
being kinder to
I'm gonna
themselves,
send
or
people your way. So how do people
oh.
come to a place of self-compassion? Like what are the beginning steps?
Well, you know, I think recognizing that they're they're struggling with it is one thing. I mean, some people it's not on their radar at all. You know, they don't struggle with it, though. I think a lot of people do have an inner critic. And I think when you start to realize there's, oh, like this isn't the only way to live. And actually, the inner critic doesn't necessarily know like the truth. You know, like the inner critic's point of view isn't necessarily an accurate point of view. There just starts to be, I think, a little bit um, of suspicion maybe around that. Like maybe the inner critic isn't like, I don't know, a reliable narrator, put it that way. And so they start to realize, I think they start to realize that it's like with life, you know, there are things that are just hard, and then there are things that are hard because we pile on top, like, oh, this is my fault that it's hard. You know, oh, if I just did it the right way, I wouldn't have to feel this way. What's wrong with me? I can't. Oh, and what's wrong with me that I can't be kind to myself? You know, all of it, it just piles up. And so I think people start to realize that there's something going on there that is worthy of looking at. Also, I think, you know, I mean, I'll answer a couple of the questions. One, I think people come to it as well because now Kristen Neff has multiple books out there. She's a researcher at UT Austin, and really the pioneer in getting self-compassion out there as even like a word that people know. She's got a lot of books, so that has certainly raised awareness about it. But I think even before her book came out, what happened for me was, I mean, if you just, the story I just kind of told was a story of self-compassion. You know, it was a story of listening. What do I need? Okay, I know what I don't need. I don't know what I do need. I want to start practicing listening. What can I say yes to? What might make me happy? I don't know, but let me try. So that whole story was a story of self-compassion. I wouldn't have used those words at the time, but as I started not only learning about how to be a therapist, but working with actual clients, one of the things I started to notice was what was happening with them. And one of the things that they like our teachers and mentors encouraged us to do was try to find language for what you see happening in the work that you do with people. How would you describe it? And so I was doing that, and I was actually, I think, creating either my first website or even my first sort of like bio that would have gone on the website for the counseling center where I was an intern, just trying to put into words, what am I doing? And self-compassion, when I was like, oh, I'm seeing people who work with me learning to be kinder to themselves. And if I had to put it into a really succinct phrase, that's what it is, like self-compassion. So it's been there since then. And that's like 15 plus years ago at this point. That was the language I found to describe what I do. And I didn't know if that would always be the language that I would use to describe it, but it has been. And then right around that time, Kristen Neff's book came out, and I was like, oh, like this is a thing, you know, this is a thing that's being researched, you know, okay, this is a thing. And it continues to be a thing. Like it continues to be a thing that I think there's so much more research on it now, and it just keeps being validated as helpful for so many things, emotional, relational, physical. It has so many benefits.
How does forgiveness play into that?
Well, you know, I think there's this way that people are often beating themselves up for things they can't forgive themselves for, and that could be big things or even little things, like, oh, like why did I mess that up, like a day-to-day thing, like why did I like drop that egg on the floor, I'm so clumsy, to, you know, why did I say that thing to that person, I really regret that, you know. So it's often, I think, the source of self-criticism, and gets in the way of self-compassion. So I think if you want to think about kind of where do they meet, how does self-compassion help with self-forgiveness, it's, you know, there are these three parts of self-compassion: mindfulness, a sense of common humanity, and self-kindness. And I think it's that common humanity piece that is the most helpful in working with, in cultivating self-forgiveness, or wanting to find a more forgiving attitude, because often we're not accepting just our humanness, our imperfection, the fact that everyone drops an egg sometimes, everyone says a thing they wish they had said a different way. We're not like robots, right, who are sort of programmed and like always do things perfectly, whatever that means. So I think recognizing I'm not alone, other people like do things in a messy way sometimes too. It takes practice for sure, especially if we've been in this habit of judging ourselves for a long time. So it's not going to happen overnight, I know. But you know, none of us can go back in time and change the past. We can only go forward and you know, look at it. Is there something about this mistake that could inform how I move forward? Or was this mistake just part of being human? And like, I drop an egg sometimes, you know? And that's part of the discernment as well. I think it's accepting our humanness, but then also looking for, okay, is there something to be learned here that could inform how I approach a similar situation next time? So for sure, self-compassion is helpful with self-forgiveness. I think they're very, very related.
Yeah, and I feel as if, as you said, self-compassion, learning a practice of self-compassion is something that takes time to develop. Just like those breadcrumbs, you weren't getting the answer. The first breadcrumb
Exactly.
didn't say, hey, be a marriage and family therapist, apply for this grad
No,
program, right? It took you a while
no,
to get
no.
there. And so
Hmm.
I feel like, forgiveness really plays in so that you're not only forgiving yourself just once, but every time with such beautiful kindness. And not only forgiving yourself, but forgiving your family members or your pets or the people, the politicians or the people in the world, and really cultivating that practice in every area of your life. And over time, it's like those breadcrumbs or little raindrops that come, and, one raindrop doesn't make a pool or a lake, but lots and lots of them
Right,
too.
right. And I think too, a lot of times, when I talk about forgiveness or self-forgiveness, people also want to name the fact that, like, well, what if I can't forgive? Whether it's myself or somebody else. And um forgiveness also can't be forced. So those drops or those breadcrumbs, like, we can't force ourselves to forgive ourselves or someone else. I think it's also really important that we respect where we are in a given moment. And so that self-acceptance, sometimes it is, can I accept myself for this thing that happened? And sometimes it is, can I accept where I am with forgiveness also? And that it's really hard for me to forgive myself, or it's really hard for me to forgive this person or this politician, because the consequences are really painful of what happened. So it's also important to hold it that way, and to not try to get somewhere that we're not, because self-compassion isn't about pretending. It's truly about finding acceptance wherever we are. And that's one of the things I love about it, is that if you can't have compassion about X, can you have compassion about the fact that you can't have compassion about X? That you can always pull back a little bit and say, okay, it's really hard. It's really hard to want to accept myself and not know how.
Yeah. And I think
That's really painful.
Yeah, but I think it's important, as you said, to really notice your practice, like your progress. So to
Mhm,
have an awareness of
mhm,
where you are, where you've been, and say,
mhm.
maybe like, I can't forgive this person now, but before, I didn't even know that I didn't even know I needed forgiveness, or that forgiveness
Right.
was even an option. And now I
Yeah.
kind of know a little bit about forgiveness, and I know that it might be possible in the future, and I'm walking towards that, but I'm just going to honor where I am now and know that I'm not where I was, you know, 3 days ago or 5 years ago or 10 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah. 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 And I think too, I'm in charge of it in a sense. Like, I have that choice, and I get to listen to myself about this. I'm not trying to live up to some story or idea about who I'm supposed to be. I get to be where I am, and I get to be real with myself about this. And real, both, I'm not where I was, and real, I'm not this saint that maybe sometimes I think I'm supposed to be. I'm here, and that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. The whole concept of enoughness is
Mhm.
really a practice. And I think it is a practice of self compassion. Do you
Yeah,
have anything you'd like to add about that?
about enoughness. Well, I think it is, again, related to humanness. I think so often the unrealistic expectations we have are that we're supposed to be more than who we are, and it can be hard to trust that we're in a like being alive is a process, and we're enough right now. Wherever we're going to be tomorrow, this afternoon, 10 years from now, it's like the seeds of that are in us right now. So can we have respect for that and trust that we're continuing to discover more about ourselves? And so much of the struggle with enoughness has to do with the stories we have about who we're supposed to be, rather than the discovery of who we actually are. You know, I think there are all these seeds that are within us, and we think we know, oh, those are like radish seeds. But maybe some of them are cucumbers. I don't know. Maybe some of them are nasturtiums. Maybe some of them are like some vegetable or plant that you never even heard of before. So we have ideas about who we're supposed to be, and I think those ideas are really what get in the way of us finding that enoughness. And if we can, again, relate to uncertainty from that place of it's also possibility, it's also discovery, it's not just scary, that's also where we can at least consider the possibility of enoughness. You know, maybe I am, maybe there's more to be discovered, maybe I'm not supposed to be who I've been saying I'm supposed to be, like,
Yeah.
maybe.
So really your questioning your stories and your things that you think you know.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I think I know this about myself, but maybe I don't know the whole story. Maybe there's something else there for me to discover or explore. And maybe if I
Yes.
sit with the possibility that I don't know everything, maybe something new will come into my awareness.
Bingo. I think for sure it will. For sure it will, because life is a mystery in so many ways. And I would never say I know myself 100%. I would never say I know you 100%, or anybody in my life, people I've known for decades. I would never say I know them 100%, because we're alive and growing and changing, and um, there's always something new to emerge.
Yeah. So, do you have a simple practice that people can do that can help them develop self compassion and really feel into this question of enoughness and
Yeah,
forgiveness?
yeah. Well, you know, the fundamental, super simple self compassion practice is putting a hand on your heart. Just putting a hand on your heart. That's not going to work in every situation, but just feeling the warmth of your own hand. I think there's a nonverbal communication of, I can be here with me right now. Um, I'm not alone. If it feels hard right now, it's not always going to feel this way. So just making that contact with ourselves. And if this feels too vulnerable, you can also hold your hand, you know, in your lap, and then no one has to know that you're making a practice of it, you know, that you're intentionally bringing kindness to yourself in a situation. But even doing that in a, you know, if you're in a meeting that's hard or something, or a conversation or a situation where you feel scared, just holding your hand can go a long way. Um, Repeating those phrases in some form that can bring in the mindfulness, the common humanity, and the self kindness. Um, this is hard, right? That's mindfulness. Like, this is hard. And if it's around self forgiveness, I wish I had handled it differently. Like, this is hard. I wish that didn't happen that way. You know, we're allowed to have those wishes. Like, that's how we feel. You know, it's hard, and I wish it didn't happen that way. And then to bring in common humanity somehow. I'm not alone. Other people make mistakes, or other people wish they had handled things differently sometimes too. So that's common humanity. And then self kindness could just be, it won't always be this hard. you know, it won't always be this hard. So I think super simple practices. Um, Actually, Esther, I can hear my headphone is acting funny. Can you still hear me? You can still hear me fine? Great. Um, so those are phrases. That's a kind of classic self-compassion break, a variation on it, which is a core practice that Kristen Neff recommends. Probably like the fundamental self-compassion practice. And so hand on the heart, this is hard. I'm not alone. It won't always feel this way. So bringing in those three elements in as simple a way as possible um, is a way to kind of plant those seeds of self-forgiveness.
Yeah, I love that. It's just really simple. And I love that, like the linked hands in the lap, something that you can do just on your own. And it feels to me like you're saying, I've got my own back. Like
Yeah.
if no one else in the world is here for me, or if I believe, because I don't think no one else in the world is there for you, but if you believe in that moment that no one else in the
Yeah.
world is there for you, you can say, I am here and I am with myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I am enough right now, no matter what that looks like.
Yeah. 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 It's it's a practice for sure. Because I know for some people that's going to feel like something they can do, and for some people that's going to feel like they could maybe say those words, but it would be hard to believe them. Just knowing it's when we're in those states, it's very hard to not. When we're telling those stories, it's very hard to not believe them.
Yeah. But I think it comes back to practice, to knowing
It
that
does.
it's
It does.
just one little layer at a time, one little layer at a time. I know
It
I feel
does.
as if, this is a really simple example, but I just started some strength training and a friend of mine was saying, what's going on with your strength training? I'm like, nothing, nothing, nothing. But then it turns out that for the first, 3 weeks, you don't really notice a difference. And all of a sudden
Yes.
on week 4, you're going, oh my gosh, it's like the seeds, the flowers come up in the spring and they've been growing for months underneath the
That's
soil, and
right.
they're growing and they're growing and they're growing and you can't see them. And then they come forth and you think, oh, they just started growing, but they've really been like down here doing the work for a
They
long
really
time, just
have.
like my muscles and the strength training. They've been doing the work and I haven't been noticing. But all of that fourth week is because of the 3 weeks before. So I feel like it's
Yeah.
the same way with self-compassion and forgiveness. Like in the beginning, it could just feel hard and like, why am I doing this? This is dumb. This doesn't work. And then if you just keep with it and you just keep trying the very best that you can, that all of a sudden you start to reap those rewards and really start to see that you're having a different thought. You're having a different reaction in what could have been a triggering situation from the past. And you're saying, oh my gosh, well, I didn't think about that quite the same. And I had a new thought about that person or about that relationship or about myself in that. And I think that's what's the really important part, is to really just stick with it through those times when you really can't see what's happening and know that
Yeah.
something is actually changing on the inside.
And again, like being willing to not know, just like to
Mhm.
to not be so sure that nothing's happening. Put it
Right,
that way.
exactly.
I will say too, you know, I, I have in the last like basically since COVID really turned toward creativity as a way to help people practice that is more tangible, concrete, and I think effective. So I think for some people, putting a hand on the heart or saying these words to themselves, it is not going to be as effective as doing something more hands on.
And do you have a
And it's,
hands-on practice for us?
I do. I was wanting to share that. So I do. I have my situation all set up so I could share something with you. It's really quick, or can be really quick.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm going to,
Okay.
um, I am going to pin you. And now you can share your screen. All right, sorry.
Okay. Great.
glitch there.
That's okay. And hopefully it will all work. There it is. I love it when it works. Sometimes it just doesn't. So, I think even just self-compassion is a relationship that we have with ourselves. And even just to draw ourselves on the page, it makes that relationship visible. So we're going to do something super simple, which is basically draw ourselves doing that thing that I just suggested would be a helpful, simple practice. So I recommend, if you have a way you want to draw yourself that works for you, go ahead. I'm going to just give a really simple way. So you can just start by drawing a circle. That's going to be your head. And then just a bell-shaped body. If you want to make it long, you could make it a dress, you could make it a shirt, but I just make it kind of shirt-like. And then just a couple rectangles for some pants. Or again, if you want to draw a skirt, you could draw a rectangle, just one kind of wide rectangle. I'll just draw these two. And look, they are not equal size. Look at that imperfection right there on the page. Totally fine. Totally fine. And then feet. So super simple. And then I would say maybe a heart, a little larger than life-size heart there. Then, I would say for you or whoever might be watching, just like check in with yourself in this moment and see, how are you feeling right now? Are you feeling pretty good? Are you feeling scared? Feeling angry? Are you feeling sad? How are you? And however you are, to in some way express that on the face here. So, if someone's feeling kind of down, I like to put the eyes super low on the face like that. So if you're feeling down or scared, that's a way to convey that. And then just like a little sad face, if you're having a hard time. And then hair, add in some hair of your choice. I always make very messy hair. And then just draw hands on the heart. So super simple, a line going out on a diagonal and then coming back in. One. And then same thing on the other side. Line coming back in, one. And then I draw a horizon line. And then, like, you have so many options now. If there are plants around you that feel comforting, you could draw them in the background. If like trees feel comforting to you, you could draw some trees. I almost always draw a cat. So I draw a little cat down here. Little paws, little leg. And to me, it's like, I love pets, animals. So some little creature expressing compassion for you, even if you're struggling to have compassion for yourself. And then you can write out over here as thoughts some of those phrases that we talked about. So things like just simple, like, this is hard. I'm not alone. And I'd say, like, it won't always feel like this. But always, like, pick words that feel true to you. And then just put it all in a thought bubble. So even that, if this is all the time you have, just that, if you have time and supplies, paint it. It's magical, I have to say, to add color. I think we have a little bit of time to add color, maybe
Yeah, let's add color.
a couple minutes. So I pretty much always start with the heart. That's the first thing I paint when I paint these. And it's shocking to me pretty much every time how it feels to add color to this little drawing. Even just that, I think there's something, and I've looked into the research about the effect of creativity, the effect of creativity on mental health, but more specifically, drawing. And what I think is happening on the page, which is I think we're creating a kind of virtual reality on the page where we're able to see ourselves and relate to ourselves, not just on the inside, but in a way that we can look at. And it makes all the difference, I have found, to do that. And, there's something so soothing about watercolor in particular. I've had students try to do this with colored pencils, and I'm like, Leah, there's a reason why you use watercolor. It's like colored pencils, very scratchy. And it's true. So it's soothing too, I think, just to paint together.
Yeah, I love this. I love the simplicity of it. I think it's really simple practice for people.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it's so relational to yourself. I mean, to be able to
Yes.
kind of view yourself. I mean, we never get to view ourselves except through other people's emotions or thoughts or stories about us, or our own
Yeah.
thoughts or stories, which are not always complimentary. And
No.
then also through the mirror, which is also a place I think for a lot of people to hold a lot of self-criticism.
Yes.
So this is a
Yes.
way where you can really create your own, kind of like you said, your virtual reality of, you know,
Yes.
who am I and who do I want to be? And maybe I paint myself happy when I'm sad, or I get to
Yep.
explore sad in a new way.
Yep. I just want to point something out too. Look, I missed a word. My old editor self would have been having a really hard time with that. So it's okay. Look, it's even cooler now. If I do say so myself, like it's even cooler now that it's got that imperfection. I sincerely think so.
Well, what I love about it is because it looks like now you have an emphasis on always.
Mm,
I won't
mhm,
always feel like this.
mhm.
So it gives it
Yeah,
extra oomph. So I really love that
that's
that
so
happened.
cool. Cool. Well, one other thing I recommend to students is if there is a word or a phrase on this page or anytime we're working together that you want to emphasize, to highlight it with color. So I'm going to do that because of what you just said. So it won't always feel this way. So maybe, for some people, the idea that they're not alone might be the thing they want to highlight. You could highlight that, if it feels comforting. That's the whole thing, and what feels comforting is going to depend on each of us, but like
Yeah.
I said, you can add whatever you want. You could just add color, like a color that feels comforting to you, to the background, to the ground. You could add trees, plants, you could fill it with hearts, whatever.
Yeah. I like
Whatever.
adding butterflies. I think butterflies are really beautiful and fun
Yeah.
to draw.
Yeah. 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 I love uh I love art journaling so much, and actually am in the process of like redoing my website and rebranding the center to be the Center for Creative Self-Compassion. So that is coming,
Oh my God.
because like art and art journaling are, I think, it's really the main way I want to practice now, and the main way I want to teach now. It's also fun, you know. It's all the things.
Yeah, super fun.
So I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, but thank you so much for I love being able to share that that practice.
Yeah. Can I share mine with you?
Oh, please.
I did a little bit of a different sharing here on the word.
Awesome. Awesome.
I am enough. I'm never alone. There's always something new to discover about me.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes.
So you have an exciting event coming up next Saturday where people could actually
Yes.
do this with you for a really
Yes.
reasonable price. So I
Yes.
really want you
Yes.
to tell us what it's about.
Okay. So I'm doing a workshop next Saturday. It's a poetry art journaling workshop called Poems That Love You. And it's in celebration of National Poetry Month, which is April every year. And what do I want to say about it? I will be sharing, just like I did, how to do simple practices. We're going to be basing what we do on self-compassion poems. You won't be writing poems, but I'll be sharing poems that are self-compassion themed one way or another. And I've found this to be a really beautiful, accessible practice for people to help them digest poems more fully, make them their own in a way. So it'll be very retreat-like, gentle. There's a lot of research on poetry as well, and how engaging with poetry gives us a safe way to process difficult emotions, and that reading poems actually activates this certain part of our brain that helps us relax and rest. So this is going to be like I said, I think a retreat-like experience. So not something that's going to be taxing in any way. And just really easeful, fun, playful, learning to be kind to yourself, or practicing being kind to yourself in real time.
And
So yeah, it's Saturday, April 22nd from 10 a.m. to noon Pacific time. The cost is $37, 2 hours, and there will be a replay video if people aren't able to attend live. And you don't need any special supplies. I'll give little suggestions, but really, if you just have pen and paper, it's fine. If you have watercolors, that would be great. I'll be using watercolors, but come as you are, is what I say.
okay. And will you be, so not everyone's going to watch this video before next Saturday's event. So are you going to
True.
be hosting other events if they go to your website in the future?
Yes.
Will they be able to
Yes.
find something
Yes.
else to do? Okay.
Yes. Yes, for sure. They
And
will.
do they have to have some relationship to poetry in order to have this be a meaningful experience?
No, just be open to poems, and you don't have to be a literature major or anything like that. Just maybe if you have like a curiosity, friendly openness to poetry, that would be great. They're not going to be complicated long poems. They're going to
Okay.
be very accessible poems.
Accessible. Excellent. And do you have one that you can share with us?
Sure. Yeah, I usually close classes with a poem, so this is perfect. I'm just going to get it in front of me so I can share with you better. Okay, so this is seasonally relevant. It's called Blessing of the Morning Light, and the poet who wrote it, David Whyte, I believe wrote it as an Easter blessing. And he wrote it for John O'Donohue, who is another poet. So the blessing of the morning light to you. May it find you even in your invisible appearances. May you be seen to have risen from some other place you know and have known in the darkness, and that carries all you need. May you see what is hidden in you as a place of hospitality and shadowed shelter. May what is hidden in you become your gift to give. May you hold that shadow to the light and the silence of that shelter to the word of the light. May you join every previous disappearance with this new appearance, this new morning, this being seen again, new and newly alive.
That was beautiful. Thank you. That feels like the perfect end to our discussion. It like really ties together the whole self-compassion and forgiveness and kindness to yourself and others, and just walking the path one breadcrumb at a time.
And allowing for the possibility that what is hidden in you can become your gift to give.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful line. Thank you so much, Leah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For
Thanks for
sharing your
having me.
creativity and your wisdom and your knowledge with us. I really appreciate it.
It was fun. Thank you.
All right.
Take care.